So I contributed a video to the Midas Touch Network where I opened up and talked about my struggles with addiction, and I want to thank those guys for allowing me to talk about it and put it on their platform. Since then, I made a video where I reacted to what Jelly Roll said to Congress and opened up a little bit more. And I got to be honest with you, it felt pretty good to rip that Band-Aid and talk about things that have made me really uncomfortable. It's never been an easy thing for me to talk about, but now that I have this platform, I would like to use it for the greater good, and I would like to be able to talk about things that I lived through and mistakes I made in hopes that someone else don't do the same. Um, First of all, I had a good childhood. My family wasn't rich by no means. We struggled, but I never realized we were struggling, and I never realized we were poor. I had two hardworking parents who were always there for me, always supportive. I had nothing whatsoever to rebel against. But when I got older, I started playing these guitars. And when I did, I decided I wanted to be a songwriter, and I wanted to go out and I wanted to write songs, and I wanted to live them as I wrote them. I was heavily influenced by Hunter S. Thompson, and I had this theory that you had to buy the ticket and take the ride. I completely believed in gonzo journalism, and I wanted to do that in my own little hillbilly world. And so I would go out there and I would party it up. I would live as hard as I could, and I would drink. At first, it was just drinking at first. I would just get as drunk as I possibly could, and I'd party as hard as I possibly could. And I did that for a while. And then I started experimenting with other things. I thought, well, if I'm going to name drop these things in my songs, I better know what they feel like. I better buy the ticket, take the ride. So I would try things out. And I never really had a problem with any of it. Nothing ever really hooked me. I could try it and walk away from it, never touch it again. I was kind of like the Sheryl Crow song, There Goes the Neighborhood, where she says, I dropped acid on a Saturday night just to see what the fuss was about. That was me for a long time. But then I started getting tired. Then it started really weighing me down and wearing me down, and I had a harder and harder time getting on stage. I was in a band called the Real Billies, and me and my buddies co-wrote a whole lot of tunes about drugs and things, and there was one song that we had called $3 Wine that became a hit in those places. And the punchline was she was writing bad checks for Lorcets and drinking $3 wine. People loved that tune, and they would walk up to me in the bathroom or out in the parking lot or catch me coming off the stage, and they'd go, here you go, man. They'd hand me some pain pills, and they'd say, here, play that song for me. Well, I didn't even know what they did or what they were, so I would just take them home, put them in a little box up on top of the closet. Before you know it, I had this pretty good sized stash just sitting there. And then one day, I had a really hard time getting on stage, and I could not wake up to save my life. And a buddy of mine said, well, have you ever took a Percocet? And I said, well, no. I said, I've never understood that. I've never understood why people would take those if they weren't in pain. He's like, dude, if you'll take one of those, you'll wake up. And he gave me one, and I woke up. I woke up so good that I couldn't go to sleep. And the next thing you know, he said to me, well, here, try this benzo here. This'll bring you down. And so then I tell him about the stash I've got. I'm like, man, I got all kinds of shit. I don't even know what it is. And he's like, well, bring it to me. I know what they are. Show me what they are. So I take them over. We lay them out. And he literally sits there and just separates them up and tells me what each thing is. And tells me what they'll do to me. And for the longest time, I did those things. I took something to take me up, wake me up, and I'd take something to bring me down. And if you'd asked me back in those days, I would have never thought I had a problem with it. I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't think there was a problem, and I would swear to you that I was not an addict at all. I'd say, no, I'm not an addict. I just do this when I play music. I just do this to get me through. I actually sat in front of my own doctor, and I told him that what I did was just an occupational hazard. That's how I twisted it in my head. And back to that doctor. I was like, this is just the life I live, and it's just what I do. I bought the ticket, took the ride, so here I am. And that doctor really tried to help me. And I ended up going back to him years later and apologizing for the way I acted toward him. That's another story. But I just kept going for the longest time. And then all of a sudden, it's like it all just started turning on me. The alcohol started turning on me. The pills started turning on me. And all of a sudden, I started becoming the drunk, belligerent dude that I couldn't stand. I started becoming the guy that would ruin the party, the guy that I couldn't stand to see coming to the party years earlier, the guy that I swore I would never be. And I ended up hurting a whole lot of people. And I ended up making a whole lot of mistakes. And I ended up making a fool of myself on so many stages. And if I woke up in the morning and felt any ounce of remorse, I'd just take something to numb that. And I would write it off that you know what? I ain't going to be alive very much longer, so it don't matter. If you'd have told me back then that I'd be alive in 2024, I'd have laughed in your face. I said, there's no way I'll ever be there, so I didn't really care. And that type of attitude and behavior, it hurt a lot of people, and I'm sorry that it did. One day I finally crashed into the wall and I ended up in rehab, and I realized then that I did have a problem. But I've always struggled with using the words when people say, so are you in recovery? I've always had a problem with that word because I'm like, I'm not really recovered. I'm still in shock from all of it. I'm still trying to kick it, and I'm still trying to get better. Maybe that is recovering. I don't know. To be honest with y'all, I'm not very educated on all that. I always avoided the meetings around here because I'm not religious. And all the meetings they ever tried to take me to always involved religion, and I didn't want no part of that. So that's why I never went to any of them. I could never find one that people wouldn't try to sell religion to me. I just didn't want that. So that's why that I don't know a whole lot about it. In this part of the world, if you go through recovery, you pretty much got to go to Jesus, and I didn't want to. Not knocking anybody that has. If that's what works for you, go for it. But it just wasn't my thing. So for years, I struggled with that word. And for years, after it was all over and after I came out of that fog and started on the road to recovery, I guess you could say, I realized that, I'd stashed them everywhere. All of a sudden, one day, it was like, dang, I found one here and I found one over here. And that's where the real temptation would come in. I'd be like, damn, now I gotta throw this thing away. And a lot of times I would flush them down the toilet when I found them. And a couple of times I'd slip up. And then I'd have to start back over again and pull myself back up. And that's been my life now for a long time. But I figure if I can, I've got a big platform now, and I feel like if I can use it for the greater good, then it'll be worth it. And if I can share my stories with people that will help them to not, you're probably, I'm not going to tell you not to do anything. I'm not that guy that's going to say, don't do this. That's just not my nature. I'm just going to tell you that if you do, these are the things that could happen to you, and this is what could happen when you're trying to come out of it. And I wrote this tune about it because that's what I do to cope, and it's called Still Trying to Kick It. I found one in my winter coat pocket, one in my dresser drawer, two in the bathroom mirror. I don't recall doing that before. Found some in the glove compartment, a few in my change can. I found two in Mama's jewelry box and one in my hat band. These old habits keep turning up. Once you've hit the wall, you've had enough. Now I might slip a time or two, but most times I throw them away, 'cause I'm still trying to kick it and getting better every day. Down there on the corner used to be my go-to guy. I had to change my number and learn to pass him by. Sometimes I see my angel, but her demons wouldn't let go. And the hardest thing I had to do was learn to tell her no. And these old habits keep turning up. Once you've hit the wall, you've had enough. Now I might slip a time or two, but most times I throw them away, 'cause I'm still trying to kick it and getting better every day. Yeah, I'm still trying to kick it and getting better every day. All right, thank you guys for listening, and if anybody wants to reach out and talk to me, feel free.